Jimosophy, interpreting events to build wealth. Hi, it's Jim at Jimosophy. Today I want to talk about why you think that real estate won't fall. So I drew a little stick man here and just sort of broke things down. This is your typical average human being. They do things, they act, and there's environments that are always changing. This could be work, this could be play, this could be with your kids, and you act different depending on that environment that's always changing. And then I exploded your brain into a few different components where you think, you feel, and there's some biological stuff going on that I know nothing about. So how you think affects how you feel affects how you think, how you feel affects what you do, and how you think affects what you do, and of course they all interact, and the environment affects how you feel and think, and there's all kinds of permutations and culminations that take place that make life fascinating. If we take thinking and break it down, Daniel Kahneman wrote a great book called Thinking Fast and Slow, with System 1 and System 2 thinking. And basically, thinking fast is easy. You might even think of it as you're on cruise control, where you just form rules of thumb. For example, 2 plus 2 is 4. Easy. It's green, it's slow moving, it's got a hard shell, it's a turtle. The light turns green, I go. The light turns red, I stop. And those little rules of thumb are how we make sense of the world, and it's very comfortable and it's nice. And then there's this other component to thinking that's not so nice, where we would actually have to analyze and go beyond those simple rules of thumb. For example, it's green, it's got a hard shell, it's slow moving, it's a turtle, no, it's a tank and it's shooting at me. And we'd have to analyze that. Or the light's going to change from red to green, amber, I need to pay attention. Are there cars going each way? Can I make it through this light? Or should I stop, depending on my speed? And we have to think. It's not so nice. It's a little uncomfortable. Easy, 2 plus 2 is 4. What's 13 times 17? Oh, I got to think about this. I have to analyze it. Another analogy would be, I know exactly where I am. I'm at home. This is great. Thinking hard would be if you were lost in the woods, and you'd have to figure, how do I get my way out? How do I get out of here? And eventually when you saw your camp or your tent, you'd be like, oh my gosh, I feel so good, I don't have to think anymore. This is nice. So thinking's tough. And we have these rules of thumb that we form right from the get-go. So getting back to why we do not believe that real estate will fall. One rule of thumb we would have would be all we've seen is what we know. So a recency effect. In Canada, there really hasn't been a recession for 30 years. And the last time housing fell was between 1989 and 1996. Now, does anybody remember that? How old would you be in 1989? Would you actually be in Canada? Or you weren't here then? Were you actually born then? Were you old enough to remember it and think about it? Generally speaking, you'd probably be around 25, which would mean you'd have to be born about 1964, which would make you 56 years old, just to remember the last time housing fell 40% between 1989 and 1996. Of course, if you've never seen it, you don't know it exists, and you'd have to think. Also, there's an availability rule of thumb where we fall back, obviously, on what we know, our rules of thumb. And if you look at real estate, the Toronto Real Estate Board, the Canadian Real Estate Association, multiple listing services, all these organizations run by realtors tell us that everything's fine and prices are going up. And if I was a realtor, I would tell you the exact same thing because my commission depends on that. So we see that everything's fine. We've never seen housing fall. We also have a bias, a rule of thumb. We like to confirm what we already know. So we seek out information that agrees with us. So we would, the media would tell us, the reports from the realtors, that everything's fine, don't worry. You know, if it falls a little, it'll just bounce right back, and there's nothing to worry about. Also, we have a loss aversion. You know, it's natural that the intensity of losing is twice the emotional intensity of winning. So we hate to lose and we love to win. But losing actually hurts even more, so we try to avoid losses at all costs. And so we just ignore the possibility of a loss, or it leads us to strange decisions. And along that lines, we also have an optimism bias, where everything's nice, and you know, we sort of overestimate good things and underestimate or don't even think about bad things. So we've got a lot going on there with recency. You know, all we see is what we know, the availability. We have all these reports available to us. They're all optimistic. We're optimistic. We don't like to lose, so we don't think about that. And we always seek out information that confirms our beliefs. But if we move down to the analysis, this would change, where we actually, it's difficult, but we'd have to challenge our natural beliefs. And if we did that, we would see what I talked about in the other videos, that on the supply side, inventory is increasing. Condominiums take a few years to be built, and they take a year or so to get permits. There's a lot of supply coming online. At the same time, we just talked about that immigration is falling because of COVID. We also have high unemployment. We have people not paying their mortgage. We have people not paying their rent. We have Canadians owing 179% of their income, the highest in the world. And these things, if we look at them, and you know, just lately we've seen that the condominium market in Canadian cities, rents have fallen 14%. And over half the condominiums are owned by investors. And naturally, that's where you would probably start to see the first drop in the market, as the investors have to unload because they don't live in them, and they can't pay them because nobody's paying them the rent. So the tip of the iceberg is starting to show, and the correction could be large. In the United States, they do have a recency effect. In 2007 to 2009, there was started a major correction. It lasted about to 2012, 2013, so everybody remembers that. And it's not surprising that the price of a home in the United States is 72% less than it is in Canada. The average price of a house on Zillow in the United States is $256,000 US today, in October 2020. And the average price of a house in Canada in US dollars is $440,000. So it's 72% more expensive in Canada than the United States, when the countries are very similar. You know, you might have free healthcare in Canada, but you have lower taxes in the United States, and the standards of living are very comparable. But there's a huge difference. One country has the recency effect, and it's available to them. They can remember when real estate fell, and it wasn't too long ago. And, you know, anecdotally, I had a friend in Florida, and they phoned me and they said, you know, there's condominiums that were $1 million in 2006, and you can buy one in Miami for $100,000. So I looked into it, I did a bit of research, and on the condominium side, what was interesting was that so many people had abandoned their condominium that the condo fees, or the homeowner's fees, were actually higher than the principal, interest, and taxes for me to buy the unit. So I would have had to pay $9,000 a year for a condo fee, and under $9,000 to actually own it. So you can see what might be happening if you analyze the situation. So that's why I think we don't really want to believe or that real estate's going to fall, because it's just easy and nice, and we don't have to analyze it. Anyway, thanks for living. Thanks for listening, And be sure to visit Jimosophy.com. Thank you. Jimosophy, interpreting events to build wealth.